Brian Griffin loves to act like the smartest guy in the room.
Meow.
But if you look even a little closer, you start noticing that every time he opens his mouth, someone gets offended, someone gets hurt, or someone ends up calling 911. So today, we are breaking down episodes where Brian absolutely should have gone to jail. Let's start the show. Season 10, Episode 20. Starts like normal exchange student adventure until it hits you with one of the darkest turns the show has ever taken. This is the episode where Meg goes to Paris and somehow ends up in a full human trafficking storyline, and Brian manages to add actual murder to his resume. If you ever wondered how far this dog could fall, this episode opens the trapdoor. Meg and her friend Ruth fly to Paris for a school semester, excited and finally getting a little freedom from home. The moment they land, a strange man approaches them, claiming to be part of some welcome group. Huge red flag, but the girls trust him anyway. He offers them a ride and takes them to what looks like a cute apartment setup.
I've got some fresh arrivals for you. How are they? On a scale from 1 to 10, they're about a 3.
Meg calls Peter to say she arrived safely, and then everything goes wrong. Ruth gets grabbed, pulled into another room, and Meg tries to hide behind the bed until she is spotted and got taken.
I don't know what you want, but I have a very particular lack of skills. I will never be able to find you.
Back at home, Peter instantly panics, but the authorities tell him nothing can be done until Meg has been missing longer. So Brian and Stewie decide they are going to handle this themselves. They buy tickets, hop on a plane, and land in Paris like two tiny, unqualified detectives on a mission. Using hotel records and Google Earth, they track down the man who took the girls. They find him, try to question him, and he gets hit by a bus right in front of them.
Died before he could tell us anything.
Brian, he's the first guy. The first guy always dies.
Clues on his body lead Brian and Stewie straight to a hideout where several girls are kept. They sneak inside, take out guards with whatever they can find, and force answers out of the last man standing. Meg has been moved to an auction. Yes, an actual auction. They rush to the location and go undercover. Stewie goes full showman on stage to Katy Perry's California Girls while Brian looks for Meg. They spot her, tied up and scared. But the auction falls apart the moment their cover slips.
Hey, where's my sister?
She's probably having her shish kebabbed as we speak.
Brian and Stewie escape and follow the buyer who has taken Meg to a yacht. They sneak aboard using dumb luck and determination. Stewie grabs weapons and yells about protection, but Brian hears the word game and starts shooting like this is a video game. And this is where Brian's worst moment happens. While trying to act like an action hero, he turns, sees an innocent waiter who was just standing there, and shoots him point blank. Meanwhile, Meg meets the man who bought her and realizes he intends for her to marry his son. And the worst part is, she actually considers it. The son is attractive and kind, and her dating history is a disaster, so she sees this as an upgrade. Before she can say yes, Stewie crashes in, yelling her name, and drags her away. Meg is rescued, returned home, and her memory is wiped by Stewie, so she will not remember any of it. Which also means she does not remember Brian killing a completely innocent man. And trust me, the next episode shows that Brian does not need a gun or Paris to commit something awful. He only needs a wife. Season 17, Episode 1 looks innocent at first, almost sweet, until you realize it contains one of Brian's coldest moments ever. This is the episode where he meets Jess, falls in love, gets married, and then watches her choke without lifting a finger. If there was ever a moment that proved this dog should not be allowed near humans, this is the one. Brian meets Jess at the Drunken Clam, and for the first time in years, he actually finds someone who agrees with him. Same opinions, same attitude, same energy. It is like Brian finally met a human version of himself, and naturally, he falls head over paws.
And hey, sorry I barked when you took your pants off. I thought it was a squirrel.
Jess tells him she has non-Hodgkin lymphoma, but Brian does not care. In fact, it seems to make him even more attached. Like he sees a countdown and wants to be the star of her final chapter. The two begin a whirlwind romance, crossing off wild bucket list items and traumatizing every passerby, unfortunate enough to witness it. They sleep together everywhere, from beaches to theater stages. And Brian treats the whole thing like it is some indie movie montage built around his ego. Then the doctor hits them with devastating news. Jess has about 2 weeks left to live. Brian responds by proposing on the spot, and the whole thing gets framed like he is the most selfless man on earth. He even gets news coverage about his bravery and devotion. He milks every second of attention like it is warm milk in a bowl. It is supposed to be heartwarming, but you can already feel the cracks starting.
You're a good guy.
Thank you, Quagmire.
Listen, I want to throw you the wildest bachelor party of all time.
Their wedding happens fast, and everybody treats Brian like a hero. But then, right after the ceremony, the doctor runs in with new test results. Jess is going to live. The cancer is gone. She has her whole life ahead of her again. And Brian looks like someone just canceled his Netflix subscription. Instead of being relieved, he immediately gets the ick. Jess starts eating again, gaining weight, laughing, joking, living normally, and Brian is miserable. Her mother moves in to help her recover, and Brian wants out even more. He tells Stewie he cannot stay married and needs to escape, but knows he will look like a monster. Then comes the moment that earns Brian a lifetime jail sentence in spirit.
You look like a baby doll found in hurricane rubble.
Aw, I'm your baby doll.
Jess starts choking at dinner. Not joking. Not dramatic choking. Real choking. She cannot breathe, and Brian freezes. Instead of helping, he panics, grabs his phone, and tries to search a how-to Heimlich tutorial. He scrolls, he taps. He panics more. Stewie begs him to move. Brian does nothing. He just watches. Jess collapses and dies right in front of him. He could have saved her by standing up and doing literally anything, but he did nothing. He goes to the funeral, stands over her coffin, and gives a speech about wishing he had more time with her. And then, in classic Family Guy fashion, Jess suddenly wakes up, alive again. This episode says it all. No gun, no trip to France, no big setup. Just Brian being Brian. And somehow, that is worse. Season 12, Episode 16, starts with Stewie watching an old Western movie and getting fascinated by the idea of becoming blood brothers. It looks wholesome for maybe 2 seconds before Brian steps in and turns the whole thing into one of the nastiest plot twists the show has ever pulled. Stewie, being the curious tiny genius he is, asks Brian how people form deep bonds. Brian explains the blood brothers ritual, where 2 people cut themselves and press their wounds together to symbolize trust. Stewie loves the idea and asks Brian to do it with him. It sounds ridiculous, but Brian agrees, acting like it is no big deal. That decision ends up being one of the worst things he has ever done.
Hey, are you blood brothers with Meg because you ate her tampon out of the trash?
No, that's something else.
The next morning, Stewie wakes up with his lips stuck to his pillow. He goes to the mirror and sees a huge, crusty sore on his mouth. He panics, screams, and storms toward Brian, demanding answers. And here it comes. Brian calmly explains that Stewie has herpes. Stewie asks how this could happen, and Brian reveals the truth. He already had herpes before they did the ritual.
You knew you had herpes and you still agreed to swap blood with me!
Relax, it's not that big a deal.
Stewie is horrified, disgusted, and embarrassed. He tries to cover the sore at daycare with a beard disguise, which makes him look like a tiny newborn lumberjack. The teacher pulls the fake beard off, and the entire class screams. Stewie becomes a walking jump scare. Later, Chris overhears Stewie telling Brian to get tested, and reveals his own secret. Chris also has a herpes sore on his lip, and guess what? He got it from Brian too. The exact same blood brothers ritual. That means Brian has been out here spreading STDs to children like he is handing out flyers.
Well, we need to teach him a lesson. He's a menace.
That is when Stewie and Chris team up for revenge. They sabotage Brian's dates by warning every woman he talks to. They hack his Facebook and change his name and profile picture into something humiliating. They turn him into a walking cautionary tale. And honestly, he deserved it. Brian eventually apologizes. He says he was embarrassed about having herpes and did not want anyone to know. But embarrassment does not excuse the fact that he infected 2 kids and kept it secret. The show tries to soften this moment, but the core truth stays the same. Brian caused a permanent medical condition for a baby and brushed it off like a small accident.
Thanks, Brian. That's all I really wanted.
So, do you forgive me?
Yes, I do.
And if you thought Brian giving a child herpes was the lowest point, wait until the next section. The next episode is the one where he crosses the most intimate boundary possible with someone who trusted him. Season 6, Episode 10 begins in the most harmless way possible. Brian wins a writing award. Cute, wholesome, safe. But because this is Brian, things go downhill so fast, you barely get time to blink. Brian invites Peter and Lois to Martha's Vineyard for his award ceremony. Peter is acting like a disaster on legs, ditching Lois for drinks and fun, leaving her frustrated and ignored.
Lois. Griffin.
You're a piece of work, you know that? An hour late and you're drunk.
Brian sees this and pulls the classic Brian move. He steps into the emotional gap like a dog-shaped rebound pillow. He starts spending the day with Lois. The entire thing looks like a date day, and Brian treats it like one. Lois, meanwhile, sees it as friendly company while her husband is being useless. She is relaxed, tipsy, and finally feeling like someone is paying attention to her, and Brian loves it. He thrives on women being vulnerable around him. It is like emotional caffeine for this dog. Then, nighttime hits. Brian suggests renting movies and ordering room service. Lois agrees, thinking it is harmless. She sits on the bed with him, still tipsy. Brian chooses this exact moment to confess something huge. The essay he won his award for, it was secretly about Lois. Every compliment, every heartfelt line, all about her. She is flattered but gently tries to shift away, making it very clear with her tone. She is married. She is drunk. She is not trying to go there. Brian ignores it. He leans in. Lois says no. He tries again. Lois says no again. Brian still keeps going. This is not a misunderstanding. This is not a weird flirty moment. He is forcing himself on her while she is intoxicated and verbally refusing multiple times.
No! Stop scratching the door!
Okay.
But believe it or not, Brian still manages to sink lower than this, because the next episode shows him ignoring child abuse and injury just to flirt with a woman who is clearly unstable. Season 10, Episode 14 starts with something small and silly. Brian picks up Stewie from daycare and notices the baby is covered in paint. Stewie brushes it off by saying another kid spent the whole day trapped in a drawer. That should have been Brian's immediate wake-up call. Instead, Brian acts like this is just another Tuesday. He does not know it yet, but he is about to ignore one of the worst cases of child neglect in the show, all because he thinks a woman is pretty. The next morning, Brian goes with Stewie to see if the daycare is really that bad, and it is worse. Kids are tied to sinks, babies strapped to chairs, no food, no supervision. It looks less like a daycare and more like a training ground for trauma. Brian storms off, ready to confront the teacher, Miss Emily, the woman responsible for all this. Then he sees her face. One smile from Miss Emily, and suddenly Brian forgets every single thing he just witnessed. All the tied-up toddlers, all the hungry infants, gone from his brain like someone flipped a switch. He instantly switches into flirting mode. Over the next few days, Brian returns to the daycare, not to protect the kids, but to flirt. Stewie tells him Miss Emily did not even show up that day. She abandoned the kids. Again, Brian still defends her, saying she is probably doing her best.
Oh, hi, Brian. I thought you had a busy day at your legal practice.
The moment Brian learns Miss Emily has a boyfriend and does not want to date him is the moment he magically grows a conscience. Suddenly, he cares about justice. Suddenly, he remembers all the child neglect. Suddenly, he wants to call the cops. Not because of the kids. Because he did not get the girl.
Man, when she gets to jail, she's gonna be Major Liz Chow.
She sure is, Stewie. She sure is.